First off, I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Obviously, we're excited to be in Orlando. The Citrus Bowl and the city of Orlando has obviously done a great job of hosting us. We've had a great week of preparation in Tuscaloosa prior to Christmas, and the kids got 3 days off for Christmas, and they've been working extremely hard since we've been here. So I think it's a great opportunity, especially defensively, to end the year on a right note. Obviously, we've had a lot of young players playing for us that we think have progressed throughout the year. But I think it's very important for us to finish this year on the right note, play extremely hard, and play to the standard of Alabama football.
First question on the right in the center.
Pete, earlier this year, Nick kind of highlighted how difficult your job was this year because of the linebacker situation, having to kind of lead those guys. One, how challenging was that for you? And two, how much did you learn about yourself coaching this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, I mean, you're at Alabama, and so I think you're coaching some of the best players in the country, with some of the best staff in the country, for the best coach in the country. So I think it's not as bad as people think it is. Obviously, those two freshmen that came in are really good players. I think the struggle, obviously, for any young player in any system coming into college football as a freshman is adjusting to the speed of the game. And then I think as many shifts, emotions, and things like that they see when the pitcher changes, those guys being able to having to make a call in a split second, and then all 11 guys are waiting on them to make the call, because they're the signal caller of the defense. I think that was a struggle early for them. But I think both those guys in the middle of our defense love football. They're extremely smart. They prepare the right way. And I think, obviously, Xavier could talk about that. But they're in there all the time. And I think they got better throughout the year. They had their growing pains. I had my growing pains. It wasn't always perfect by any means, but it was a situation that we were put in. But I'm extremely proud of how they handled themselves and the preparation they put forward.
Staying on the right, one row back on the aisle.
For Xavier, we've heard a lot about this team having something to prove and wanting to make a statement. What exactly is the statement that this team wants to make in this game?
Just that we got it. Just that we can still compete, we can still play hard. That we still have the Bama factor, something that we talk about a lot. I know in a lot of the games that we play, we haven't really played our best, but we just want to come out here and show that we still can play and that we still can show that we are Bama and that we can go out and dominate.
Same row on the right.
For Pete, is there something maybe the outsiders, people who aren't in the program, who don't understand? What do they not understand about the process of these young guys coming in and learning the defense kind of on the fly like they had to?
I mean, I think obviously a lot of programs play freshmen. I think a lot of it has to do with the position that they're playing and who's around them. I think it was a unique deal this year that you lost two guys at the same position to where you have two 18-year-olds that have never been in the system side by side. And I think a lot of times they're looking for confirmation, and the guy beside them that doesn't really know either. And I think that's been the big difference in the past. It's not like freshmen haven't played at the University of Alabama or freshmen don't play at every other school in the country. That happens. It's going to happen. But I think the big difference is that guy having to make the calls, set the fronts, set the blitzes, and then having validation beside him to where if he's second-guessing himself, no, hey, it's Ringo, Ralph, just to confirm what he was thinking. I think that was probably the difference this year of having two 18-year-old kids side by side in the middle of your defense that are responsible for making the calls. So I think that was the unique part of it, to where you can look across the board, people play freshmen. Alabama's going to play freshmen. We're going to have great juniors that go out to the draft. That's going to happen. So you have to replace those guys and develop the bottom of your roster. But it's unique in those guys having to be the signal caller and being side by side. I think that was kind of the difference.
We'll go over on the left, second row on the aisle.
Pete, you mentioned you've had your growing pains this year.
Mm-hmm.
Where have you learned and grown the most as a play caller? And do you have an example of maybe a situation later in the season that you did differently?
Yeah, I think it's always tough as a coach. I think obviously when you prepare and you're seeing what the opponent does and you're trying to take away their bread and butter and obviously give them different looks and all those things to take away, to some of their top plays, I think you got to be careful of asking your guys to do something that they maybe can't do. And I think at times as coaches, we always want the answer and we always want the chalk glass. And schematically on the board, we want to look like we've got the extra guy or we're fitting this the right way. And I think at times we put too much on those guys to where they're thinking instead of reacting. And I think especially for young football players, to be able to get lined up, set the front, keep the coverage obviously the same, and be able to adjust out what you're in helps those guys. And I think sometimes as coaches, we can think too much and think we're too damn smart at times, all right? And then, try to put them in certain situations to where they start changing the picture and we change the coverage because it's what's best to do. However, if you can't execute it, it doesn't matter the call. We got to be able to execute, obviously, the call, whatever we call. But I think the big thing is obviously trying to keep it simple, however, be sound and be multiple, because I think obviously we got good offensive coordinators, good quarterbacks. So if they know what you're going to be in, obviously they have a play designed to beat it, So I think obviously for us, from a pitcher standpoint, having the ability to change the pitcher but keep it simple for our guys where the rules stay consistent and they can play fast. I think obviously that was something throughout the year that we kind of improved on. We still got to get a lot better at.
We're going to stay on the left.
Xavier, I wanted to ask you about one of your teammates that you came in to Alabama together with. What's it been like the last 3 years in practice going against Devonta Smith?
Man, it's tough. He's one of those guys that makes you better. First when I came against him, like when we first came in, we didn't really go like against each other that much. But throughout the past 2 years, I've had a chance to go one-on-ones against him when we're doing 2-on-2 drills. And it's tough. It's hard to guard him. He's a guy that can run. He's physical. He don't look, super physical because he's not really a big guy, but he's definitely a guy that's very physical. He's not really afraid of anybody, and he definitely makes sure he competes every time. So he's one of those guys that's tough to guard either way it goes. So I try to do my best, and I know every time I go against him, I try to give him my best shot because I know he makes me better every time. So it's definitely fun going against him because I know I get to compete against him. I know that he's going to make me better.
Over on the right, third row in the center.
James Ogletree, the Crimson White. Pete, wanted to ask you about two guys who look like they could potentially be in line to play a little bit more in this game than they have. That's Josh Jobe and Chris Allen. With Josh, we know he's a passionate player. How have you kind of taught him to harness that and still play with that passion but be disciplined? And then what kind of growth have you seen out of Chris this year?
Yeah, I think obviously Josh has had a really good week of preparation, both in Tuscaloosa and here. He's an extremely competitive kid. Obviously, he's got the skill set and the length that we want at that position. And I think he's done a great job over the last 2 weeks, and Coach Scott and Coach Saban obviously coaching him, of locking in and focusing on his job. And just controlling what he can control, finishing on the ball in the deep part of the field is something that he's been working on throughout the year that I think he has improved on. But he's been very good at the bottom of the route. He is an emotional kid, but he's learned to control his emotion and not play emotional. And I think that's obviously something the coach talks about a lot. That's kind of showed up early. But he's maturing. Obviously, he understands the role he's in. He's got some great players around him. Xavier does a really good job with him. And, those guys in the back end are a very close group, so they kind of help lead themselves. But I think the last two weeks he's really been focusing on his job, obviously controlling what he can control, but playing with emotion but not getting emotional, which Coach talks about all the time. And I think that's something he's starting to do.
We're going to go over on the left in the back.
Joseph Salvador, Florida Citrus Sports. Coach, what are you seeing from Shea Patterson on film? Why has he been so successful his last couple of games, especially the last 3 games?
Yeah, I think obviously offensively what they do, Coach Gaddis and those guys do a really good job. So schematically, they make you count for all 11. They're going to run the quarterback. So obviously your structure on defense, you got to be able to account for the quarterback in the run game. And then I think on third down, he does a really nice job of extending plays. So when things break down in the back end and they got guys covered, he can step up or out, and he does a really nice job based on the coverage, whether he's going to scramble if the back's to you in a two-man principle, or he does a nice job in zone of keeping his eyes downfield. Their receivers do a really good job of breaking off the routes, and a lot of their explosive plays come on third down when the play broke down. It wasn't designed to be that way, but it became an explosive play off the scramble, in a man principle or a zone principle, the scramble rules, and he hits a deep shot. So I think the big thing is accounting for him, obviously, in the run game. He's very athletic. They do a lot of unique things to be able to run their quarterback for you to use all 11 guys. And then I think on third down it's going to be pivotal, obviously, to keep him, make him be a pocket passer. All right, and then use our hands. Obviously, I think the flight of the ball, we got to do a good job up front getting our hands up. But we've got to be able to contain him and keep him in the pocket.
We're We're going to go over on the right.
You know, so we talk a lot about those freshman linebackers, but you guys have had to play some freshmen up front too. How has that added to the challenge this year, and what have you seen from that group?
Yeah, I think obviously, you know, Justin Boydby and Byron Young, we've had several guys up front as true freshmen that play. So they've played extremely hard. They're very coachable. I think obviously you want to be having a racer, you know, so normally if you got a young guy, you know, up front, then you want a veteran guy behind him to where I'm a second level guy. He makes a mistake, he's in the wrong gap, then we can make it right. I think at times we end up in the same gap a lot. So obviously, you know, that's a challenge. But I think I love just the way they work. You know, they come to practice. They're eager to learn. They play extremely hard. Obviously, we've got to improve on our gap integrity, you know, and striking and coming out of our hips. And then we got to do a better job at the second level of making those guys right. You know, that's the bottom line of playing linebacker, be able to fix things and erase things. And we got to be able to help those guys.
Go back over on the left on the aisle.
Isaiah Hole, Wolverines Wire. Pete, what are the challenges of going up against a guy and Josh Gaddis, a guy that was in your building, and what have you seen out of his offense, whether it be similarities, differences from his time in Tuscaloosa to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I think obviously the unique thing is anytime you're playing an opponent, you know, whatever you struggled with on tape, you're normally going to see. All right, obviously they go through that, and things that you've struggled with throughout the year normally end up showing back up. I think what's unique about him having been here, you know, regardless of whether it's been on tape or we've been put in that position this year, he knows having been here in practice, you know, things obviously that make us adjust certain ways and certain calls and things like that. You know, so I think obviously, you know, that does give him an advantage. Because we haven't put everything on tape, you know. So most guys that play us, hey, what you struggle with on tape, you're going to repeat and you're going to see again. And obviously he knows our system, you know, and he knows obviously some of the rules of the system. But, you know, you got to execute. You know, I think as coaches, you call a play. The players got to execute the play. You know, it ain't always perfect. So I think we got to do a good job of stemming in disguises, some fronts and some coverages. But the bottom line is going to be about our execution and our players playing extremely hard.
Final question across the aisle on the right.
Coach, Chris Allen, how much growth have you seen from him, not only this season playing, but also, you know, just knowledge of the game sitting out last season with injury?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Sal's done a really good job with him. And then obviously having been in the system a couple years, getting banged up and coming back. He's a smart football player. He understands the system. Obviously, he'll have an opportunity in this game to be able to showcase that a little more. But we're extremely excited about his potential. Coach Sal, you know, does a good job with him. I think the kid understands the system, understands what we're asking him to do. So he's developed. He's come a long way. So I think he'll play well.